5 alien spacecraft breached Earth's atmosphere, each carrying a Denobulan female in the peak of her mating cycle. The vessels touched down in major cities across the globe: New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, and Sydney. Panic erupted as Ceres, the lead alien, emerged from her craft in New York's Central Park. United Nations officials scrambled to respond, calling an emergency meeting. Dr. Austin Boyd, a renowned xenobiologist specializing in extraterrestrial biology, received an urgent summons to assess the situation. Upon arrival, he discovered the Denobulans were a highly advanced species seeking compatible mates to ensure their survival. Their race faced extinction due to a genetic bottleneck, and Earth represented their last hope. As Austin began his assessment, the aliens' potent pheromones started affecting human males in the vicinity. Chaos spread through the streets as men experienced heightened aggression and uncontrollable urges. Government leaders engaged in heated debates, torn between treating the aliens as a threat or potential allies. Some advocated for immediate military action, while others saw an opportunity for diplomatic relations. Austin's preliminary findings revealed the Denobulans possessed technology far beyond human capabilities. Their ships utilized faster-than-light travel, and their medical knowledge surpassed anything known to Earth scientists. However, the aliens' mating process involved a complex series of physical and biochemical interactions, potentially dangerous to humans. The situation escalated when the Denobulans issued an ultimatum. Earth had 72 hours to provide suitable mates, or they would take what they needed by force, regardless of human casualties. The clock started ticking, and Austin found himself tasked with finding a scientific solution to satisfy the aliens' biological imperatives without compromising human safety or autonomy. As Austin delved deeper into Denobulan physiology, searching for potential compatibility issues and ways to synthesize the necessary biological components, the world around him descended into chaos. Military forces mobilized around the landing sites, their weapons trained on the alien craft. Global markets plummeted as uncertainty gripped the planet, and public opinion split between viewing the aliens as invaders or potential saviors offering advanced technology in exchange for cooperation. The xenobiologists worked tirelessly, analyzing data and conducting experiments to understand Denobulan mating habits. He grappled with the ethical implications of interspecies breeding, knowing that his findings could determine the fate of humanity. As the 72-hour deadline approached, Austin emerged as the key figure in shaping Earth's response to this unprecedented extraterrestrial encounter. With time running out and the fate of 2 species hanging in the balance, Austin raced to develop a strategy to negotiate with the aliens. The future of humanity rested on his shoulders as he prepared to face the Denobulan visitors and present Earth's solution to their desperate plight. As Austin prepared to face the Denobulan visitors, he felt the weight of humanity's future pressing down on him. With a deep breath, he stepped out of his makeshift lab and into the chaos-filled streets of New York City. The scene that greeted him was one of unprecedented pandemonium. Men affected by the potent alien pheromones roamed the streets with wild eyes and impossibly strong aggression. Police struggled to maintain order as fights broke out spontaneously. In the distance, military vehicles rumbled through the city, their presence a stark reminder of the looming threat. Austin made his way to a secure facility near Central Park, where he had been granted emergency clearance to establish a research center. As he entered, he was immediately greeted by a team of scientists from various disciplines, all handpicked for their expertise. Dr. Boyd, a geneticist named Dr. Sarah Chen, approached him, her face etched with concern. "We've begun analyzing the samples collected from Ceres. The results are troubling." Austin nodded grimly. "Show me what you found." As they pored over the data, reports flooded in from around the globe. Tokyo was in lockdown, with Japanese authorities struggling to contain riots near the alien landing site. In London, a group of men had attempted to breach the perimeter around the Denobulan ship, resulting in several injuries. Moscow reported similar incidents of civil unrest, while Sydney had implemented a citywide curfew. The research team worked tirelessly, their eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep. Coffee cups littered every available surface as they raced against time. Austin felt the pressure mounting with each passing hour. Suddenly, an alert flashed across the main screen. It was a live feed from an emergency United Nations session. World leaders argued heatedly, their faces contorted with stress and fear. "We cannot bow to these alien demands," the Russian representative shouted. "We must show strength." The Chinese delegate countered, "And risk annihilation? We must consider all options before resorting to military action." As the debate raged on, Austin turned his attention back to the lab results. His eyes widened as he noticed an anomaly in the Denobulan genetic structure. This could be something," he muttered, calling over Dr. Chen. They worked feverishly, analyzing and reanalyzing the data. Hours passed in a blur of calculations and hypotheses. Finally, as the first rays of dawn broke through the lab windows, Austin made a breakthrough. "The Denobulan mating process," he explained to his team, his voice hoarse from exhaustion. "It's not just physical. There's a complex exchange of genetic material that occurs through multiple interactions. But here's the problem. Human physiology isn't equipped to handle this exchange. It could be fatal." A collective gasp went through the room. Dr. Chen leaned in, her brow furrowed. "So what can we do?" Austin pointed to a specific sequence on the screen. "See this? It's a unique protein in human DNA. I think we might be able to use this to synthesize a compatible substitute for the Denobulan genetic material." As news of this potential solution spread, a commotion erupted outside the facility. A group of men, led by a muscular figure with a determined stride, had gathered at the gates. "We demand to be heard," the leader shouted, his voice carrying over the din of the crowd. "We're willing to sacrifice ourselves for humanity." Austin watched the scene unfold on the security monitors, his heart sinking. The pheromones were driving these men to reckless action. He recognized the leader, Jack Harper, a former Navy SEAL whose military record was legendary. Before anyone could react, Jack and his followers breached the security perimeter. They stormed towards Ceres' ship, their faces a mix of fear and misguided bravery. "Stop them!" Austin yelled into his comlink, but it was too late. Jack reached the ship first, coming face to face with Ceres. The Denobulan female towered over him, her alien features both beautiful and terrifying. For a moment, time seemed to stand still as human and alien locked eyes. Then chaos erupted. Security forces swarmed the area, pulling Jack away from Ceres. He fought against them, his eyes wild and unfocused. As they dragged him to a quarantine area, Austin knew they had just gained their first test subject. With less than 48 hours remaining on the Denobulan ultimatum, Austin and his team redoubled their efforts. They worked on developing a device that could safely extract and modify human genetic material, making it compatible with Denobulan biology. As they refined their prototype, alarming news came from the global monitoring stations. The Denobulan ships in other cities had begun emitting strange energy signatures. Military forces worldwide went on high alert, and civilians were herded into underground bunkers. Austin stood in the lab, surrounded by screens displaying data from Jack's encounter with Ceres. The device they had created hummed softly, ready for its first real test. But before they could proceed, an urgent message flashed across all screens. Satellite imagery revealed a massive object entering Earth's orbit, a Denobulan mothership. The realization hit Austin like a physical blow. The 5 Denobulan females on Earth were just the beginning. A much larger force waited above, watching humanity's response. As panic spread through the research facility, Austin forced himself to focus. Their prototype device was now more crucial than ever. It represented not just a solution to the immediate crisis, but possibly humanity's only hope for survival in the face of a potential full-scale invasion. With trembling hands, Austin prepared to test the device on Jack's genetic material. The fate of 2 species now rested on the success of this unprecedented experiment. As he initiated the procedure, Austin couldn't help but wonder, would this be the dawn of a new era of interspecies cooperation, or the beginning of humanity's extinction? The hum of the device filled the lab as Austin initiated the procedure on Jack's genetic material. Tension hung thick in the air, the fate of humanity resting on this crucial experiment. As the machine whirred to life, a series of rapid beeps echoed through the room, followed by a sudden blinding flash of light. Austin shielded his eyes, heart pounding. When the light faded, he rushed to examine the results. His eyes widened as he scanned the data streaming across the screen. "We did it," he breathed, barely able to contain his excitement. "The device works." Dr. Chen leaned in, her brow furrowed as she studied the readouts. "It's incredible. The human genetic material has been successfully modified to be compatible with denobulan biology." A collective sigh of relief swept through the lab, but Austin knew their work was not nearly finished. As if on cue, the facility's communication system crackled to life. "Dr. Boyd," a stern voice announced, "your presence is required immediately at the United Nations Security Council emergency session." Within the hour, Austin found himself in a packed conference room, surrounded by grim-faced world leaders. The air was thick with tension as Ambassador Marcus Stern, a distinguished man with salt and pepper hair, took the floor. "Ladies and gentlemen," Stern began, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation, "we have decided to initiate diplomatic contact with the Denobulan mothership. However, we must be prepared for all eventualities." As Stern outlined the plan for communication, Austin's mind raced. He knew he had to share the breakthrough with the genetic modification device, but before he could speak, an aide burst into the room. "Sir," the aide gasped, addressing the Secretary General, "we've just received urgent reports from the facility holding Jack Harper." All eyes turned to the newcomer as he continued. "Harper is exhibiting unusual physical changes. His muscle mass has increased dramatically, and he's displaying bursts of superhuman strength." Austin's heart skipped a beat. This development could change everything. He quickly requested permission to speak and shared the news of their successful prototype. "With this device," Austin explained, his voice gaining strength as he spoke, "we may be able to create a team of humans capable of safely interacting with the Denobulans. It could be our best chance at peaceful negotiation." The room erupted into a flurry of discussions and debates. As the leaders argued, a new alert flashed across the main screen. Austin's blood ran cold as he read the message. The Chinese government had announced the development of a powerful EMP weapon, threatening to use it against the Denobulan ships. Immediately, the Russian and American representatives voiced their strong opposition, fearing catastrophic retaliation. As if the situation couldn't get any more tense, another alert came through. The Denobulan ships in Tokyo and Sydney had activated mysterious energy fields, cutting off all communication with the affected areas. The room fell into stunned silence, the gravity of the situation weighing heavily on everyone present. Austin knew they were running out of time. "We need to act now," he urged, breaking the silence. "I propose we fast-track human trials of the genetic modification device. We can recruit volunteers from military personnel and civilians affected by the Denobulan pheromones." After a heated debate, the council agreed to Austin's plan. Within hours, a group of brave volunteers had been assembled, and the trials began. Austin worked tirelessly, monitoring each subject's reaction to the genetic modification. Some showed promising signs of compatibility, their bodies adapting to the changes with remarkable resilience. Others, however, experienced severe adverse reactions, their systems rejecting the alterations violently. As Austin and his team worked to refine the process, a surprising message arrived from the Denobulan ship in New York. Ceres, the alien female, was requesting a direct meeting with human representatives. Despite the obvious risks, Austin and Ambassador Stern agreed to meet with Ceres alone and unarmed. As they approached the alien ship, Austin's heart raced, knowing that this encounter could change the course of human history. Ceres towered over them, her alien features a mix of beauty and otherworldliness. Her voice when she spoke was melodious yet tinged with urgency. "Dr. Boyd, Ambassador Stern," she began, "there is much you need to understand about our presence here." She revealed that the Denobulans were engaged in a complex genetic engineering project, aiming to create a hybrid species capable of surviving in diverse environments across the galaxy. Earth, she explained, had been chosen due to humans' unique genetic adaptability and resilience. As Ceres spoke, Austin's mind whirled with the implications of this revelation. Before he could fully process the information, an alert on his communication device caught his attention. The energy domes over Tokyo and Sydney had dissipated, but all adult males in both cities had vanished without a trace. The news sent a shockwave through Austin. He turned to Ceres, his voice tight with barely controlled anger and fear. "What have you done with those men?" Ceres's alien features shifted in what Austin interpreted as concern. "It was not our intention to cause harm. Those individuals are being studied, their genetic material analyzed for compatibility." Ambassador Stern, his diplomatic training evident in his measured tone, interjected, "Ceres, you must understand that these actions are causing widespread panic and could lead to violent retaliation from Earth's governments." Austin, seeing an opportunity, quickly outlined his plan. "We've developed a device that can modify human genetics to be compatible with Denobulan biology. If we can create a team of volunteers capable of safely interacting with your species, perhaps we can find a solution that doesn't involve mass abductions." Ceres tilted her head, considering the proposal. "This could be acceptable, but time is short. Our genetic diversity is critically low. We cannot wait much longer." As they discussed the possibilities, a low rumble filled the air. Austin looked up to see the massive Denobulan mothership descending from the clouds, positioning itself directly over New York City. The sight of the enormous craft hovering above the skyline sent a clear message. The clock was ticking, and the fate of both species hung in the balance. Austin knew that the success of his plan and the future of humanity now depended on the next few crucial hours. As Austin contemplated the gravity of the situation, a commotion erupted outside the ship. "Sir!" An aide rushed towards them, breathless. "We have a situation. Jack Harper has escaped quarantine." Austin's heart sank. The implications of a genetically altered, potentially unstable individual on the loose were dire. He turned to Ceres, his voice tight with urgency. "I need to handle this. We'll continue our discussions shortly." As Austin and Ambassador Stern hurried back to the command center, reports flooded in. Jack Harper, utilizing his newfound strength and agility, had evaded capture and was making his way toward Central Park. The public's reaction was mixed. Some viewed him as a dangerous threat, while others saw him as a potential savior in the face of alien contact. Meanwhile, Austin's team of volunteers had begun the genetic modification process. The procedure was far from comfortable. Agonized groans echoed through the medical bay as the volunteers writhed on their beds, their bodies racked with fever and nausea. Dr. Chen monitored their vital signs, her face etched with concern. "The physical stress is intense, but their bodies are adapting. It's remarkable." Austin nodded, watching as one of the volunteers, a young Air Force pilot named Sarah, opened her eyes. They glowed with an otherworldly light. "How do you feel?" Austin asked, approaching her bedside. Sarah blinked, her voice hoarse. "Like I've been hit by a truck, but also like I could run a marathon. It's hard to explain." Before Austin could respond, a low hum filled the air. The Denobulan mothership, which had been hovering ominously over the city, began to descend. A shimmering energy field emanated from the vessel, cascading over the New York skyline. Panic erupted on the streets as electronic devices flickered and died. The city's emergency sirens wailed, their sound distorted by the alien energy field. Austin's comlink crackled to life. "Dr. Boyd, we need you at the command center immediately. The situation is escalating." When Austin arrived, he found the room in chaos. Screens displayed military forces mobilizing around major cities worldwide. Evacuation protocols had been initiated in areas deemed high risk. Ambassador Stern approached, his face grave. "The Chinese are preparing to deploy their EMP weapon. We're doing everything we can to talk them down, but they're not listening." As tensions reached a fever pitch, a surprising development unfolded. Jack Harper emerged from Ceres' ship, walking calmly towards the military cordon surrounding the park. His skin had taken on a bluish tint, and his eyes glowed with the same otherworldly light as the volunteers. "I need to speak with Dr. Boyd," Jack announced, his voice carrying an unusual resonance. "I have crucial information about the Denobulans' intentions." Despite objections from military officials, Austin made the decision to meet with Jack. They convened in a hastily established secure area near the park's perimeter. Jack's appearance was unsettling. His muscles rippled beneath his skin in ways that seemed almost inhuman. When he spoke, Austin could sense the change in him went far beyond the physical. "The Denobulans project is more complex than we realized," Jack began. "They're not just creating hybrids. They're trying to unlock the evolutionary potential of both species. They believe that combining our genetic material could lead to a new race capable of surviving deep space." As Austin processed this information, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. The Denobulan mothership was descending further, massive organic-looking tendrils extending from its hull. The alien appendages latched onto several skyscrapers, causing immediate structural damage. Evacuation alarms blared across the city as people fled the affected buildings. Austin knew they were running out of time. "We need to board that ship," Austin declared, his mind racing. "My team and I have been genetically modified. We should be able to withstand their environment and communicate more effectively." Jack nodded, his glowing eyes fixed on the alien vessel. "I'll go with you. My partial transformation might prove useful." As they rushed to prepare for the mission, reports came in of similar tendrils emerging from Denobulan ships in London and Moscow. The world seemed to hold its breath, awareness dawning that the next few hours could determine the fate of humanity. Austin's team, still recovering from their genetic modifications, geared up for the ascent. They donned experimental jetpacks, their hands shaking slightly as they adjusted the straps. "Remember your training," Austin said, meeting each of their eyes. "We're humanity's best hope for peaceful resolution." As they prepared to launch, a blinding flash lit up the sky to the east. Austin's stomach dropped as he realized what had happened. The Chinese government had launched their EMP weapon at the Denobulan ship in Sydney. Through their comm links, they heard the frantic reports. The alien vessel had lost power, crashing into the Sydney Opera House. The extent of the damage and casualties was unknown. Austin exchanged a grim look with his team. This aggressive action could derail their entire mission before it even began. Nevertheless, they had no choice but to proceed. With a nod to his team, Austin activated his jetpack. They soared upward, navigating the treacherous updrafts created by the ship's energy field. As they approached the massive vessel, organic-looking pods opened along its surface, seeming to invite them inside. Heart pounding, Austin led his team towards the opening. They were about to enter unknown territory, carrying the weight of humanity's future on their shoulders. As they crossed the threshold into the alien ship, Austin couldn't help but wonder, were they walking into humanity's salvation or its doom? Doom? As Austin and his team crossed the threshold into the alien ship, they were immediately engulfed in a world unlike anything they had ever experienced. The interior pulsated with an eerie, bioluminescent glow, revealing a vast chamber that seemed more alive than mechanical. Organic-looking corridors branched off in every direction, their walls undulating with a slow, rhythmic movement. The team's genetically modified physiology allowed them to breathe the alien atmosphere, but the sudden shift in gravity left them disoriented. Austin stumbled, his hand instinctively reaching out to steady himself against a nearby wall. The surface felt warm and slightly yielding beneath his touch, sending a shiver down his spine. "Everyone okay?" he asked, his voice sounding oddly muffled in the alien environment. Sarah nodded, her glowing eyes wide with a mixture of awe and apprehension. "It's incredible. Like we're inside a living organism." Before Austin could respond, a group of tall, blue-skinned humanoids emerged from one of the corridors surrounding the team. Their leader, a Denobulan with distinctive facial ridges, stepped forward. He held up a small device that emitted a soft hum. "I am Commander Zax," the alien's voice came through clearly, translated by the device. "Your presence here is unexpected, but not unwelcome. However, we must address the unprovoked attack on our Sydney vessel." Austin raised his hands in a placating gesture. "Commander, I assure you, that attack was not sanctioned by the global community. We're here to negotiate a peaceful resolution." Zax's eyes narrowed, studying Austin and his team intently. After a moment, he nodded. "Your genetic modifications? Intriguing. Very well. We will continue our discussions. Follow me." As they moved through the ship's winding passages, Austin couldn't shake the feeling that the vessel itself was watching them. The walls seemed to pulse with increased intensity as they passed, and faint whispers echoed just beyond the range of comprehension. They entered a massive chamber that could only be described as the ship's central laboratory. The sight that greeted them left the team speechless. Lining the walls were enormous biotanks, each containing what appeared to be various stages of human Denobulan hybrid embryos. The scale of the operation was staggering. "My God," Jack Harper breathed, his altered physiology allowing him to process the sight more quickly than the others. "They're not just studying us. They're trying to create an entirely new species." Commander Zax turned to face them, his expression a mixture of pride and urgency. "You begin to understand the scope of our work. Our species faces genetic collapse. This project is our last hope for survival." Austin stepped forward, his mind racing to find a diplomatic solution. "Commander, I propose a collaborative effort. Earth has incredible genetic diversity. We could work together, sharing our resources and knowledge, without resorting to forced hybridization." Zax tilted his head, considering the offer. "An intriguing proposal, Dr. Boyd. However, time is not on our side. Our genetic degradation accelerates with each passing day." Before Austin could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. A holographic display materialized in the center of the room, showing a map of Earth. Large portions of Europe and Asia were flashing red. "What's happening?" Sarah asked, her voice tight with concern. Commander Zax's face darkened. "It appears your Chinese colleagues were not content with attacking a single ship. Our vessels in London and Moscow have activated defensive protocols in response to the perceived global threat." The display zoomed in, showing swarms of microscopic machines being released into Earth's atmosphere. Austin watched in horror as reports of widespread technological failures began flooding in from major cities across 2 continents. Jack Harper suddenly stiffened, his eyes glazing over. I can see it," he muttered, his fingers twitching as if typing on an invisible keyboard. "They're computer systems. I can access them." Austin turned to Jack, hope flaring in his chest. "What do you see?" Jack's voice was distant, his mind clearly elsewhere. "They've been collecting genetic samples, millions of them, from every major city they've scanned. They already have what they need to continue their experiments." The implications of this revelation hit Austin like a physical blow. Their position in the negotiations had just become much weaker. He turned back to Commander Zax, desperate to find a solution before the situation spiraled completely out of control. "Commander, please, we need to stop this before it's too late. The nanomachines your ships released, they're affecting our ionosphere. Our scientists predict catastrophic climate shifts if we don't act quickly." Zax's expression remained impassive, but Austin could sense a growing tension in the alien's posture. The fate of both species hung in the balance, and time was running out. In that moment, Austin made a decision that would change the course of human history. "I'll do it," he said, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. "Use me as a test subject for your hybridization process. Let's prove that voluntary cooperation can yield better results than forced adaptation." The room fell silent, all eyes, human and alien, fixed on Austin. Commander Zax studied him intently, then nodded slowly. "Very well, Dr. Boyd. We shall proceed with your proposal." As the Denobulan scientists began preparing a biotank for Austin, alarms continued to blare throughout the ship. Outside, Earth teetered on the brink of chaos, its leaders issuing final ultimatums to the alien visitors. Austin took a deep breath as he approached the tank filled with glowing, gelatinous fluid. He turned to his team, their faces a mixture of fear and admiration. "Whatever happens," he said, "remember why we're here. To save both our species." With that, he stepped into the tank, the gel enveloping him in its warm embrace. As the hybridization process began, Austin felt his body changing at the cellular level. Pain coursed through him, but he forced himself to remain conscious, knowing that the fate of 2 worlds rested on the success of this experiment. Suddenly, a new alarm pierced the air, its pitch higher and more urgent than before. Commander Zax rushed to a control panel, his movements frantic. "Something's wrong," he shouted. "The process is triggering an unexpected reaction in his modified genes." The ship itself seemed to shudder, its bioorganic systems responding to the cascade effect initiated by Austin's transformation. As consciousness began to slip away, Austin realized that the consequences of their audacious attempt were only just beginning to unfold. The biotank surrounding Austin shattered, spilling its glowing contents across the laboratory floor. He collapsed, his body convulsing as it underwent rapid changes. His skin took on a bluish tint, and his features elongated subtly, blending human and Denobulan characteristics. Commander Zax barked orders to his team as they rushed to contain the situation. "Seal the laboratory! We can't risk contamination!" Massive bulkheads slammed shut, isolating the central chamber from the rest of the ship. The walls pulsated erratically, their bioluminescent glow flickering like a frantic heartbeat. Sarah knelt beside Austin, her hands hovering uncertainly over his trembling form. What's happening to him? Jack's eyes glazed over as he tapped into the ship's systems. The hybridization process. It's causing some kind of energy cascade. It's affecting the entire vessel. Commander Zax's fingers flew over a control panel, his face contorted with concentration. The ship's bioorganic systems are going haywire. We need to stabilize them before... A violent shudder ran through the floor, nearly knocking them off their feet. Alarms blared with renewed urgency. "What about Earth?" Sarah shouted over the cacophony. "The nanomachines." As if in answer, a holographic display materialized, showing a real-time view of the planet below. Swirling patterns of light crisscrossed continents, coalescing into larger, more complex structures in the atmosphere. "They're generating electromagnetic pulses," Jack reported, his voice distant as he processed the incoming data. "Power grids are failing across entire regions." Commander Zax's expression hardened. "This was not our intent. The defensive protocols were designed to neutralize immediate threats, not cause widespread damage." Austin groaned, pushing himself to his hands and knees. His voice, when he spoke, carried an otherworldly resonance. "We need to stop this, before it's too late." The ship lurched again, more violently this time. Sparks erupted from control panels as the vessel's systems struggled to cope with the energy emanating from Austin's transformed body. Jack's eyes suddenly widened. "I've accessed their main database. The Denobulans, they've been doing this on other planets. Earth isn't the first." Commander Zax whirled to face him. "How did you—" He shook his head, refocusing on the crisis at hand. "It doesn't matter. What you've seen is true. Our species faces extinction. These experiments are our last hope." Austin staggered to his feet, leaning heavily against a console. To everyone's amazement, the erratic pulsing of the ship's walls began to slow, synchronizing with his breathing. "Look," Sarah pointed to the nearest biodisplay. "The ship's systems, they're stabilizing." Commander Zax studied the readouts, his expression a mixture of awe and calculation. "Fascinating. Your hybridized form seems to be resonating with our technology. Perhaps this is the key we've been seeking." He turned to face the rest of Austin's team. "We must expand the experiment. If we can replicate this effect—" "You can't be serious," Sarah interrupted. "After what just happened to Austin?" Jack held up a hand, his cybernetically enhanced mind racing through possibilities. "Wait, it might be our best option. If we can stabilize the ship, we might be able to recall the nanomachines." Before they could debate further, the holographic display shifted, showing massive, root-like structures emerging from the Denobulan ships in London and Moscow. The tendrils burrowed deep into the earth, triggering seismic disturbances that rippled outward. "What are they doing?" Austin asked, his voice growing stronger as his body adapted to its new form. Commander Zax's shoulders slumped slightly. "Engaging emergency protocols. They're attempting to tap into your planet's geothermal energy. It's a last resort, meant to ensure our survival if diplomacy failed." The implications hit them like a physical blow. The Denobulans weren't just conducting experiments. They were preparing for colonization. Jack's eyes narrowed as he processed a new stream of data. Earth's military is mobilizing. They're deploying some kind of seismic disruptors. Austin pushed away from the console, standing straighter as he addressed Commander Zax. We need to contact Earth's leaders immediately. This situation is spiraling out of control. The Denobulan commander nodded grimly. Agreed. But first, we must address the instability aboard this vessel. Are you willing to assist us in expanding the hybridization process to your team members? Austin looked at his colleagues, their faces a mixture of fear and purpose. It's your choice, he said softly. But I think it might be our only chance to prevent a catastrophe. As they grappled with this life-altering decision, the ship shuddered once more. Through the holographic display, they watched as the root-like structures from the Denobulan ships pulsed with energy, drawing power from deep within the Earth. Time was running out. Whatever choice they made would shape the future of both species and the fate of the planet below. As the gravity of the situation sank in, a tense silence fell over the laboratory. The fate of two species hung in the balance, with Earth's ecosystem and the Denobulan genetic crisis intertwined in a complex web of consequences. Austin, still adjusting to his new hybrid form, locked eyes with Commander Zax. "We need a solution that addresses both our problems," he said, his voice carrying a newfound resonance, one that doesn't involve forced adaptation or planetary destruction. At that moment, a transmission broke through the ship's communication systems. A familiar face appeared on the holographic display, Dr. Elena Rodriguez, Earth's leading xenobiologist. "This is Dr. Rodriguez broadcasting on all frequencies," she announced, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around her. "I have a proposal that might save both our species." Commander Zax tilted his head, intrigued. "Proceed, Dr. Rodriguez." Elena outlined her plan for a controlled, large-scale hybridization process. As she spoke, Austin felt a surge of hope. This could be the solution they desperately needed. "It's ambitious," Jack commented, his cybernetically enhanced mind already running simulations. "But it could work. We'd need to act fast, though." Sarah looked skeptical. "How can we be sure it's safe? We've seen what happened to Austin." Austin flexed his newly transformed fingers, feeling the power coursing through his veins. "I'm living proof that it can be done," he said, "and with refinement, we can make the process smoother and more controlled." Commander Zax nodded, his expression thoughtful. "This proposal has merit. It could address our genetic crisis while potentially neutralizing the threat our nanomachines pose to your planet." As discussions intensified, reports flooded in from around the globe. Earth's leaders, faced with the imminent threat of alien technology and the promise of a peaceful solution, were rallying behind Dr. Rodriguez's plan. Within hours, a joint task force was assembled. Scientists, diplomats, and military personnel from both species worked feverishly to implement the hybridization program on an unprecedented scale. Austin, now uniquely positioned as a bridge between humans and Denobulans, found himself at the center of the operation. His hybrid physiology allowed him to communicate complex concepts to both species, facilitating the delicate negotiations required for this audacious plan. As preparations accelerated, the Denobulan mothership began a controlled descent towards Earth. Austin stood at the viewport, watching as the ship's massive bulk pierced the atmosphere, heading for a specially prepared landing zone in the Mojave Desert. "It's really happening," Sarah breathed, standing beside him. "We're making first contact on a global scale." The ship touched down with surprising gentleness, sending up clouds of desert dust. As the dust settled, Austin saw a sea of faces gathered at the perimeter of the landing zone. Scientists, government officials, and curious onlookers, all waiting with breathless expectation. Over the next few days, hybridization centers sprang up in major cities worldwide. Volunteers poured in, driven by a mix of scientific curiosity and the desire to save humanity. Austin watched in awe as the first groups entered the modified biotanks, their bodies enveloped in the glowing gel that would rewrite their genetic code. Jack Harper, utilizing his enhanced abilities, took charge of coordinating the global effort. His unique insight into both human and Denobulan biology proved invaluable as they fine-tuned the hybridization process. "We're seeing some unexpected developments," Jack reported during one of their daily briefings. "Enhanced strength, improved sensory perception, even accelerated healing in some cases." Commander Zax nodded, his eyes gleaming with excitement. These adaptations could be the key to our species' survival, perhaps even the beginning of something greater than either of us could have imagined. As the first wave of hybrid transformations neared completion, Austin noticed a change in the atmosphere. There was a palpable sense of connection among the newly transformed individuals, as if they were part of something larger than themselves. One evening, as Austin was reviewing data in the ship's laboratory, he felt a sudden surge of something. It was as if 1,000 voices were whispering in his mind, just on the edge of comprehension. "Jack," he called out, his voice shaking slightly. "Are you feeling this?" Jack's eyes were wide, his fingers twitching as he processed the influx of information. It's like a network. I can sense the others, all around the world. And the ships, I can feel their systems too." Commander Zax burst into the room, his normally composed features alive with excitement. "It's happening," he exclaimed. "The collective consciousness, it's forming." As they grappled with this new development, reports began flooding in from around the globe. The hybridized humans were exhibiting telepathic abilities, able to communicate with each other and interface with Denobulan technology. This unexpected turn of events sparked urgent discussions among world leaders and alien representatives. The potential benefits were enormous, but so were the ethical and security concerns. In the midst of these debates, Commander Zax approached Austin with a bold new proposal. "We've seen the success of incorporating Denobulan DNA into human physiology," he said. "I believe it's time we consider the reverse process." Austin's mind raced with the implications. "You want to introduce human DNA into Denobulan volunteers?" Zax nodded solemnly. "It's the logical next step, a truly balanced hybrid species, capable of bridging the gap between our civilizations." As they discussed the details of this new phase, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Jack's eyes glazed over as he tapped into the global network. "We've got trouble," he announced grimly. "There's a resistance movement forming. They're targeting hybridization centers and newly transformed individuals." Austin felt a chill run down his spine. They were so close to achieving something monumental, something that could ensure the survival and evolution of both species. But now, faced with fear and misunderstanding, it all hung in the balance. As reports of violence and protests flooded in from cities around the world, Austin knew they were entering a critical phase. The future of human-alien relations, and perhaps the fate of both species, would be determined by what happened next. He turned to Commander Zax and Jack, his expression resolute. "We need to act fast. It's time to show the world the true potential of what we're creating here." With that, they set to work, knowing that the next few days would shape the course of history for two civilizations on the brink of transformation. As the gravity of the situation sank in, Austin and his team redoubled their efforts to coordinate the global hybridization program. The transformation centers hummed with activity, processing volunteers at an unprecedented rate. Yet, even as progress accelerated, new challenges emerged that would test the limits of their newfound alliance. It began with whispers, barely perceptible at first. Hybrid individuals across the globe reported strange sensations, a growing awareness of something beyond their immediate surroundings. Jack Harper, his cybernetically enhanced mind, attuned to the subtle shifts in the network, was the first to recognize the significance of these reports. "Austin," Jack called out, his eyes wide with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "You need to see this." Austin hurried over to Jack's workstation, where a holographic display showed a map of the world dotted with pulsing lights. Each light represented a cluster of hybrid individuals, and as Austin watched, the lights began to synchronize, pulsing in unison. "It's the collective consciousness," Jack explained, his fingers flying over the controls. "It's evolving, becoming more cohesive. And there's something else." Before Jack could elaborate, an alert flashed across the screen. Reports were flooding in from hybridization centers worldwide. Groups of hybrids were demonstrating an unprecedented ability to manipulate the Denobulan nanomachines through their shared mental link. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's face appeared on a nearby screen, her expression a mix of awe and concern. "Austin, Jack, are you seeing this? The hybrids are interfacing directly with the nanomachines. They're altering their programming, redirecting their functions." Austin felt a surge of hope mingled with trepidation. This development could be the key to neutralizing the harmful effects of the nanomachines on Earth's atmosphere. But the implications of such power were staggering. "We need to harness this ability," Austin said, his mind racing with possibilities. "If we can coordinate the hybrids on a global scale, we might be able to reprogram the nanomachines entirely." Dr. Rodriguez nodded, her eyes gleaming with perseverance. "I have a proposal," she said. "A global network of hybrid volunteers, all working in concert to control the nanomachines. With Jack's coordination abilities, we could attempt a synchronized mental effort on an unprecedented scale." As they discussed the logistics of this ambitious plan, alarms blared throughout the facility. Commander Zax burst into the room, his face grim. "We have a situation," he announced. "The resistance movement has launched coordinated attacks on hybridization centers in major cities. There are reports of significant casualties." Austin's heart sank as he watched footage of the attacks on the holographic display. Smoke billowed from damaged buildings, and chaos reigned in the streets as panicked civilians fled the violence. "That's not all," Jack added, his voice tight with tension. "I'm picking up chatter about a planned assault on this facility. They're targeting the mothership." Austin's mind raced as he assessed their options. They needed to protect the hybridization program and the Denobulan ship, but they couldn't afford to let this escalate into a full-scale conflict. "We need to contact General Stryker," Austin said, turning to Commander Zax. "If we can deploy his EMP-resistant forces to protect key sites, it might buy us the time we need to implement Dr. Rodriguez's plan." As Commander Zax relayed the request to Earth's military leadership, Dr. Boyd's voice crackled over the communication system. "I've made a breakthrough," the scientist announced, his excitement palpable even through the static. "The hybrid physiology, it's allowing for a more efficient and stable method of genetic material exchange between humans and Denobulans. We can accelerate the hybridization process and potentially solve the Denobulan genetic crisis more effectively than we ever imagined." Commander Zax's eyes widened at this news. He turned to Austin, a spark of hope igniting in his gaze. "This changes everything," he said. "If we can demonstrate the benefits of hybridization on this scale, it might help sway public opinion and quell the resistance." As they grappled with these new developments, a commotion erupted outside the control room. A group of hybrid children, offspring of the first wave of transformed humans, burst into the room, their eyes alight with an otherworldly intelligence. "We can help," the eldest child said, her voice carrying a resonance that belied her years. "We can see the patterns in the nanomachines, in the very fabric of reality itself." Austin exchanged a stunned glance with Jack and Commander Zax. The emergence of these second-generation hybrids, with abilities that surpassed even their transformed parents, added yet another layer of complexity to their already precarious situation. As they stood at this crossroads, with violence erupting around the globe and the fate of two species hanging in the balance, Austin knew that their next moves would shape the course of history. The hybridization program had unleashed forces beyond their wildest imaginations, and now they had to find a way to harness that power for the good of both humanity and the Denobulans. With a deep breath, Austin turned to address the assembled group, human, Denobulan, and hybrid alike. "We have an opportunity here," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. "An opportunity to show the world the true potential of what we've created. It's time to put Dr. Rodriguez's plan into action." As they began to mobilize, coordinating with hybrid volunteers across the globe and preparing for the most ambitious mental synchronization in history, Austin couldn't help but feel a mix of trepidation and hope. They were about to attempt something unprecedented, with the fate of two civilizations hanging in the balance. The resistance forces were closing in. The nanomachines continued their relentless terraforming of Earth's atmosphere, and the newly discovered abilities of the hybrids threatened to upset the delicate balance of power. In the midst of this perfect storm, Austin and his team prepared to unleash the full potential of the human Denobulan hybrid consciousness, knowing that the outcome would forever alter the course of both species' evolution. As Austin and his team prepared to harness the full potential of the human Denobulan hybrid consciousness, Dr. Elena Rodriguez burst into the control room, her eyes wide with excitement and a hint of apprehension. "Austin, Jack, you need to see this," she said, gesturing for them to follow her to the adjacent laboratory. Inside, a group of second-generation hybrid children stood in a circle, their hands linked. At the center, a volunteer adult hybrid sat, looking both nervous and eager. "Watch," Dr. Rodriguez instructed. The children closed their eyes in unison, and a soft glow emanated from their joined hands. The adult hybrid gasped, his body tensing as if jolted by an unseen force. Within moments, his features began to shift subtly, taking on more pronounced Denobulan characteristics. "Incredible," Austin breathed, his mind racing with the implications. "They're accelerating the hybridization process through touch." Dr. Boyd, who had been observing from the corner, stepped forward. "This changes everything," he said, his voice filled with cautious optimism. "We can modify our plan to incorporate these children as hybridization accelerators. It could significantly boost the effectiveness of our nanomachine neutralization effort." As the team discussed the logistics of implementing this new strategy, alarms blared throughout the facility. Jack's eyes glazed over as he tapped into the global network. "We've got incoming," he announced grimly. "Jonathan Crane's resistance movement has launched a coordinated offensive. They're targeting hybrid communities, with a specific focus on locations housing second-generation children." Austin's heart sank as he processed this information. "They must have gotten wind of the children's abilities," he said, his voice tight with concern. "We need to protect them at all costs." Commander Zax nodded solemnly. "I'll contact General Stryker immediately. His EMP-resistant units are our best chance at defending key hybrid locations." As Zax relayed the urgent request to Earth's military leadership, Dr. Boyd approached Austin with a determined look in his eyes. "While we're implementing these defensive measures, I believe it's time we take the next step in our hybridization efforts," he said. "We need to begin the reverse process on Denobulan volunteers." Austin raised an eyebrow. "You mean incorporating human DNA into Denobulan physiology?" Boyd nodded. "Exactly. It's crucial for creating a truly balanced hybrid species. I've already discussed it with Commander Zax, and he's on board." As they set the wheels in motion for this new phase of the experiment, reports flooded in from around the globe. General Stryker's forces had engaged Crane's militants in several major cities, resulting in intense urban warfare. Civilians caught in the crossfire fled in panic, while hybrid communities banded together to protect their own. Aboard the Denobulan mothership, a team of human and Denobulan scientists prepared for the reverse hybridization procedure. Commander Zax stood at the forefront of a group of Denobulan volunteers, his expression a mix of anticipation and drive. "Are you sure about this?" Austin asked, standing beside the Denobulan commander. Zax nodded. "It's the logical next step. We must bridge the gap between our species in every way possible." As the procedure began, Jack coordinated the final preparations for the global mental operation. Hybrid volunteers gathered at designated sites worldwide, forming an intricate network of consciousness. At the center of each location, protected by Stryker's forces, stood a group of second-generation children, ready to act as hybridization accelerators. Just as they were about to initiate the operation, Dr. Rodriguez's voice crackled over the communication system, her tone urgent. "Austin, we have a problem. The nanomachines are evolving at an accelerated rate. They're coalescing into larger structures in the upper atmosphere." As if on cue, the facility's lights flickered and died, plunging them into momentary darkness before emergency power kicked in. Outside, the sky lit up with an eerie, pulsating glow. "Electromagnetic pulses," Jack muttered, his cybernetic implants working overtime to process the influx of data. "The nanomachines are generating them. We're seeing blackouts and communication disruptions worldwide." Dr. Rodriguez's voice came through again, tinged with terrifying panic. "If we don't neutralize them soon, they could become an uncontrollable threat to both our species." Austin shared a grim look with Jack and Commander Zax. "We're out of time," he said. "Jack, give the signal. We need to start the operation now." Jack nodded, his eyes glazing over as he connected with the global hybrid network. "Initiating mental link in 3, 2, 1. Around the world, millions of hybrids focus their collective consciousness on reprogramming the Denobulan nanomachines. The second-generation children at each site glowed with an otherworldly light, amplifying the mental efforts of those around them. In the atmosphere above, the nanomachine structures began to fluctuate wildly, creating a spectacular display of light and color visible from the ground. But the strain on the hybrid network was evident, as participants across the globe reported physical and mental distress. Just as it seemed the operation might falter, a new presence entered the mental link. The newly hybridized Denobulans from Commander Zax's experiment joined the effort, their unique perspective providing a sudden surge of power to the network. As the mental battle reached its peak, Austin watched the monitors with nervous excitement. The nanomachine structures in the atmosphere continued to destabilize, but it was unclear whether their efforts would be enough to neutralize the threat completely. With the fate of both species hanging in the balance, Austin knew that the next few hours would be crucial. The world held its collective breath, watching and waiting to see if this unprecedented collaboration between humans and Denobulans would be enough to save their shared future. Futures on a precipice. The air crackled with tension as the global mental operation reached its zenith. Suddenly, a surge of energy pulsed through the hybrid network. Austin watched in awe as the atmospheric structures created by the nanomachines began to waver and fracture. The once cohesive formations split apart, breaking down into smaller, more manageable components. "It's working," Dr. Rodriguez's voice rang out through the communication system. "The nanomachines are responding to the reprogramming efforts." As the operation continued, Jack's eyes widened, his cybernetic implants processing a flood of incoming data. "Austin, something unexpected is happening," he said, his voice tight with concern. "The reprogrammed nanomachines are congregating around the hybridization accelerators." Austin turned to the nearest monitor, where real-time footage showed dense, glowing clouds of microscopic particles swirling around the second-generation hybrid children at various sites across the globe. "What does this mean?" Austin asked, his mind racing with possibilities. Before Jack could respond, Dr. Boyd's voice crackled over the comm system. "We're detecting unusual energy signatures from the hybrid participants," he reported from the Denobulan mothership. "Their vital signs are fluctuating. We need to consider terminating the mental link soon to prevent potential neurological damage." As if to underscore Boyd's warning, several hybrid volunteers in the facility began to show signs of distress. Nosebleeds, muscle spasms, and sudden losses of consciousness rippled through the group. "We can't stop now," Austin insisted, torn between concern for the participants and the urgent need to complete the operation. "We're so close to neutralizing the threat." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. Jack's eyes glazed over as he tapped into the global security network. "Crane's forces are launching another offensive," he announced grimly. "They're targeting hybridization centers with makeshift EMP devices." Austin's face hardened. "Get me General Stryker," he ordered, turning to the communication array. Within moments, Stryker's weathered face appeared on the main screen. "We're already mobilizing, Mr. Chen," the general reported, the sounds of deployment echoing behind him. "My troops are engaging Crane's forces in urban centers worldwide. We'll do our best to protect the hybridization sites, but I can't guarantee we won't see significant collateral damage." As Austin coordinated with Stryker, Dr. Rodriguez's voice cut through the chaos. "Austin, Jack, you need to see this," she said, her tone a mix of excitement and apprehension. A new feed appeared on the main display, showing live footage from the Mojave Desert facility. The newly hybridized Denobulans from Commander Zax's experiment were undergoing startling transformations. Their bodies emitted a faint, pulsating glow, and their movements seemed to flow with an otherworldly grace. "Incredible," Zax murmured, his own features showing hints of the same luminescence. "The combination of human DNA and the intense mental link appears to be triggering rapid evolutionary adaptations in our physiology." As they marveled at this development, Dr. Rodriguez's voice took on a note of urgency. "We have another problem," she announced. "The reprogrammed nanomachines are spreading across the globe at an alarming rate. They're interacting with Earth's ecosystems in ways we never anticipated." Satellite imagery on the main screen showed accelerated plant growth in some regions, while others experienced sudden shifts in weather patterns. Austin watched in disbelief as entire landscapes transformed before his eyes. "My God," Dr. Boyd breathed, his face pale on the video feed from the mothership. "We've inadvertently created a form of planetary-scale terraforming technology. The reprogrammed nanomachines are actively modifying Earth's environment." The implications of this revelation hung heavy in the air. Austin shared a grim look with Jack, both men acutely aware of the potential consequences of their actions. "We need to convene an emergency session with world leaders," Austin said, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his mind. "They need to be aware of the situation and help us decide our next move." As preparations for the global conference began, a commotion erupted near the entrance to the control room. A group of second-generation hybrid children, led by a young boy with piercing eyes, pushed their way inside. "We can help," the boy announced, his voice carrying a resonance that belied his years. "My name is Aiden, and we have a solution." Austin knelt down to meet Aiden's gaze. "What do you mean?" he asked, intrigued by the child's confidence. Aiden's eyes seemed to glow with an inner light as he spoke. "We can establish direct control over the reprogrammed nanomachines," he explained. "We can guide the terraforming process to benefit both humans and Denobulans without causing an ecological disaster." Dr. Boyd's voice cut in, his tone cautious but interested. "It's possible," he mused, "but the mental strain on the children would be immense. We'd need to create a specialized neural interface to distribute the cognitive load and protect them from harm." As the team debated the merits of Aiden's proposal, Jack's cybernetic implants flared to life once more. "We've got incoming," he announced, his voice tight with tension. "Crane's forces are making a push for the Mojave Desert facility. They're aiming to destroy the Denobulan mothership." Austin's mind raced as he weighed their options. The fate of 2 species and an entire planet hung in the balance, with the next few hours promising to reshape the course of history. "Jack, start coordinating with Dr. Rodriguez to set up the neural interfaces for Aiden's plan," Austin ordered. "Dr. Boyd, begin preparations on the mothership. We need to be ready to implement this as soon as possible." Turning to the communication array, Austin opened a channel to General Stryker. "General, we need everything you've got at the Mojave Desert facility. We can't let Crane's forces reach the mothership." As Stryker acknowledged the order and mobilized his troops, Austin felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. The hybrid experiment had unleashed forces beyond their wildest imaginations, and now they faced the monumental task of harnessing that power to save both their worlds. With a deep breath, Austin turned to address the assembled team, human, Denobulan, and hybrid alike. "We have one chance to get this right," he said, his voice steady and resolute. "Let's make it count." As they sprang into action, implementing Aiden's audacious plan and preparing for the battle ahead, Austin couldn't help but wonder what new challenges and revelations the coming hours would bring. The future of 2 civilizations and the very nature of life on Earth hung in the balance, with the next phase of their journey promising to be the most perilous and potentially rewarding yet. As Austin's team sprang into action, implementing Aiden's audacious plan, Dr. Elena Rodriguez burst into the control room, her eyes wide with excitement and a hint of fear. "Austin, Jack, you need to see this," she said, pulling up a holographic display. "The hybridization process has unlocked something extraordinary in human DNA." The display showed a rapid sequence of genetic mutations, cascading through human and Denobulan genomes alike. Austin leaned in, his brow furrowed as he tried to make sense of the data. "What are we looking at, Elena?" he asked, his voice hushed. Dr. Rodriguez's fingers danced across the holographic interface, zooming in on specific genetic markers. "It's accelerated evolution, unlike anything we've ever seen. Both humans and Denobulans are developing enhanced physical and mental capabilities at an alarming rate." As if to underscore her point, a nearby hybrid technician lifted a fallen support beam with seemingly superhuman strength, while another closed his eyes and recited complex mathematical equations without pause. Jack's cybernetic implants whirred as he processed the new information. "This changes everything," he said, his voice tight with concern. "We need to factor these developments into our plans immediately." Before they could discuss further, alarms blared throughout the facility. Jack's eyes glazed over as he tapped into the security feeds. Crane's forces have breached the outer defenses at the Mojave Desert facility, he reported grimly. They're making a push for the mothership. Austin's face hardened as he quickly assessed their options. He opened a secure channel to General Stryker, who appeared on the main screen, his face streaked with dirt and sweat. "General, we need everything you've got at Mojave," Austin said urgently. "We can't let them destroy the mothership." Stryker nodded, perseverance etched in his weathered features. "Understood, Mr. Chen. We're already en route. This old dog's got a few tricks left." As Stryker mobilized his forces, Dr. Boyd's face appeared on a secondary screen, his expression grave. "We've received authorization from world leaders to deploy the genetic stabilizer," he announced. "It's our best shot at halting these evolutionary changes before they spiral out of control." Austin shared a concerned look with Jack and Dr. Rodriguez. "What about the hybrids?" he asked. "And the nanomachines?" Dr. Boyd shook his head. "We don't know for certain. The device was never tested under these conditions. It's a significant risk, but one we may have to take." As they debated the merits of using the genetic stabilizer, Jack suddenly went rigid, his cybernetic implants pulsing with an eerie blue light. "Something's happening with the nanomachines," he said, his voice distant. "They're connecting." Dr. Rodriguez rushed to her console, fingers flying across the holographic interface. "He's right," she confirmed, awe creeping into her voice. "The reprogrammed nanomachines are forming a global network. It's integrating with Earth's natural systems." Commander Zax, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. "This could be our chance," he said, his eyes gleaming with the same otherworldly light as the hybrid Denobulans. "If we can interface the mothership's bioorganic systems with this network, we might be able to control the terraforming process with unprecedented precision." As the team considered Zax's proposal, a series of urgent alerts flashed across the main screen. Reports poured in from around the globe, describing attacks by strange hybrid animals with enhanced abilities. Dr. Rodriguez's face paled as she analyzed the incoming data. "The hybridization effect," she murmured. "It's spreading to Earth's wildlife through the nanomachines. We're triggering a planet-wide evolutionary cascade." The control room erupted into a flurry of activity as they grappled with this new threat. General Stryker's voice cut through the chaos, his tone urgent. "We need to activate the genetic stabilizer now," he insisted. "The situation on the ground is deteriorating rapidly." Dr. Boyd shook his head vehemently. "It's too risky," he argued. "We don't know how it will affect the hybrids or this new global network. We could cause irreparable damage." As tensions mounted, Aiden and the other second-generation hybrid children stepped forward, their eyes glowing with an inner light. "We've done it," Aiden announced, his young voice carrying a weight beyond his years. "We've established a mental link with the network." The room fell silent as they watched the children, who moved with an eerie synchronicity. On the main screen, satellite imagery showed the nanomachine network pulsing in rhythm with the children's movements. "It's working," Dr. Rodriguez breathed, monitoring the children's vital signs. "But the strain, it's enormous. We can't maintain this connection for long without risking severe neurological damage." Jack, his cybernetic implants still interfaced with the global information network, suddenly straightened. "I have an idea," he said, his eyes focusing on the Denobulan mothership displayed on one of the screens. "But it's going to be risky." Austin turned to his friend, recognizing the look of desperate perseverance on Jack's face. "What do you have in mind?" he asked, bracing himself for the answer. Jack gestured to the mothership. "We use its bioorganic systems to create a massive hybridization chamber, process thousands of volunteers simultaneously. If we can create a large enough population of stable hybrids, we might be able to safely manage this network and control the evolutionary cascade." The room erupted into a heated debate as they weighed the merits and risks of Jack's audacious plan. As they argued, another alarm blared, cutting through the din. "Crane's forces have launched a coordinated attack on hybridization centers worldwide," Jack reported, his voice grim. "Our forces are stretched thin. We're losing ground." Austin looked around the room, taking in the faces of his team, human, Denobulan and hybrid alike. They had come so far, overcome so much, but now faced their greatest challenge yet. The fate of two species, and perhaps the entire planet, hung in the balance. With a deep breath, Austin made his decision. Jack, start preparations for the mass hybridization. Dr. Boyd, Commander Zax, Dr. Rodriguez, I need you to fine-tune that chamber. Make it as safe as we possibly can. As the team sprang into action, Austin turned to Aiden and the other children. Can you hold the connection a little longer? He asked gently. Aiden nodded, sweat beading on his brow. We'll do our best, he said, his young voice straining with the effort. Austin squared his shoulders, feeling the weight of history pressing down upon them. As the final stage of their unprecedented experiment approached, he knew that the next few hours would determine not just the future of human Denobulan relations, but the very nature of life on Earth itself. Austin's decision set off a flurry of activity throughout the facility. As Jack began preparations for the mass hybridization, Dr. Boyd, Commander Zax, and Dr. Rodriguez huddled around holographic displays, fine-tuning the chamber's parameters. We need to ensure the genetic recombination is stable, Dr. Boyd muttered, his fingers dancing across the interface. One miscalculation could lead to catastrophic mutations. Commander Zax nodded, his antennae twitching with concentration. I'm integrating Denobulan biomechanics to enhance the process. It should help mitigate any unforeseen complications. As the scientists worked, Austin coordinated with General Stryker to secure the facility. The sounds of distant explosions punctuated their conversation, a stark reminder of the ongoing battle against Crane's forces. We're holding the line, Mr. Chen, Stryker reported, his voice tight with exertion. But we can't keep this up indefinitely. Whatever you're planning, make it quick. Austin acknowledged the general's warning and turned his attention to the hybrid children. Aiden and his peers stood in a circle, their eyes closed and bodies glowing with an eerie blue light. Dr. Rodriguez monitored their vital signs, her face etched with concern. Their neural activity is off the charts, she whispered to Austin. I've never seen anything like it. Aiden's eyes fluttered open, meeting Austin's gaze. We're ready, the boy said, his voice carrying an otherworldly resonance. The network is stabilized. We can guide the process now. With a nod, Austin gave the signal to begin. The massive hybridization chamber in the Denobulan mothership hummed to life, its bioorganic components pulsing with energy. Volunteers from around the world streamed into the facility, their faces a mix of fear and tenacity. Jack stood at the entrance to the chamber, coordinating the flow of volunteers. Remember, he called out, his voice carrying over the din, this is our best chance to save both our worlds. Stay calm and trust in the process. As the chamber filled, Dr. Boyd's fingers hovered over the activation switch. He shared a look with Commander Zax and Dr. Rodriguez, each of them understanding the weight of the moment. With a collective breath, they initiated the hybridization process. The chamber erupted in a blinding light, waves of energy washing over the volunteers. Through the observation window, Austin watched as thousands of individuals underwent rapid genetic changes. Their bodies shifted and morphed, taking on characteristics of both human and Denobulan physiology. Outside the chamber, Aiden and the other hybrid children intensified their connection to the Gaia Matrix. Their bodies glowed brighter, and Austin could almost see the tendrils of their consciousness spreading out across the globe. Suddenly, the entire facility began to pulse with a rhythmic energy. Austin felt it wash over him, a sensation both foreign and strangely familiar. He watched in awe as the pulse spread beyond the walls of the mothership, touching everything in its path. The Gaia Matrix, Dr. Rodriguez gasped, her eyes wide as she monitored the global feeds. It's responding to the surge of hybrid consciousness. The pulse is spreading worldwide. On the screens around them, they watched as the pulse touched cities across the globe. Humans and hybrids alike paused in their activities, their faces registering shock and wonder as they felt the connection. The Denobulan nanomachines, now fully integrated with Earth's biosphere, began to move with new purpose. They spread through damaged ecosystems, repairing and restoring balance with incredible speed. A sudden commotion at the facility's entrance drew Austin's attention. Jonathan Crane stumbled in, his face pale and his eyes wild. Behind him, his followers lowered their weapons, looks of confusion and awe replacing their previous hostility. What is this? Crane stammered, his voice trembling. I can feel everything. Austin approached him cautiously. It's the hybrid network, he explained. We're all connected now. Can you see what we're trying to achieve? Crane nodded slowly, tears welling in his eyes. I understand now, he whispered. We were so wrong. This is beautiful. As the pulse reached its peak, Austin watched in amazement as the world around them transformed. The aggressive hybrid animals they had been battling suddenly calmed, their movements becoming graceful and purposeful. Plants and trees outside the facility began to grow at an accelerated rate, their patterns guided by the intelligent nanomachines. The doors to the hybridization chamber hissed open, releasing a wave of newly transformed individuals. Jack emerged at the front, his body subtly altered but still recognizably himself. He took a deep breath, his eyes widening as he experienced the new connection to the world around him. Austin, Jack said, his voice filled with wonder. It's incredible. I can feel the planet's rhythms, the connection to every living thing. We did it. As Jack joined his consciousness with Aiden and the other hybrids, Austin felt a surge of hope. The hybrid collective worked in perfect harmony, guiding the nanomachines to repair the damage caused by years of pollution and neglect. Dr. Boyd and Commander Zach stood beside Austin, watching the results of their work unfold. We've created something far beyond our original intentions, Dr. Boyd mused, his voice filled with awe. Commander Zach nodded, his antennae quivering with emotion. Earth has become a living, breathing entity, he said, and these hybrids, they're its caretakers and guardians. As the immediate crisis subsided, Austin turned his attention to the future. The world had changed irrevocably, and there would be challenges ahead. But for the first time since the Denobulan Beauties had arrived on Earth, he felt a sense of true hope for the future. We have a lot of work ahead of us, Austin said, addressing the assembled group of humans, Denobulans, and new hybrids. But together, I believe we can build something truly extraordinary. As they began to discuss their next steps, a message came through from the Global Communication Network. Leaders from around the world were calling for a summit to address the unprecedented transformation of their planet. The dawn of a new era had arrived, and humanity stood ready to embrace its hybrid future.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.